In the dropshipping space, everyone is selling the same products. Especially now with Temu and spy tools, it's becoming harder and harder to compete. I'm sure you already thought about building your own custom product, but maybe you don't know where to start. We will break it down for you in this episode. And together with Dayu, who has built his own customized product from scratch, and myself helping hundreds of products to be developed into custom products, we want to bring you some insights on what works. From coming up with an idea until having the actual product on the shelf, it's a journey, and it requires preparation, patience, and iterations. Let us take you on a journey of developing your custom product. Another episode. I'm here today again with Dayu and myself, Simon, developing custom products. What is actually your experience on this, Dayu?
Yeah, so actually, I started my career developing custom products. So I started with two co-founders, created Codi, the smart storytelling robot from the company Pillar Learning. And it was a fully custom developed IoT smart toy. It was based on some products that were very hot in China at the time, but it was fully custom board, fully custom firmware, custom servers. And it was actually featured on Shark Tank a few years ago. That was very, very difficult, by the way. So that was before when I found out about dropshipping and before that boom. And dropshipping, on the other hand, is a lot easier to get started and sell a product. And then now I'm actually working with a partner and developing a skincare brand. So that's a whole different beast that we'll talk about as well. But essentially through both my experience and also e-com ops and my own dropshipping career, I have actually seen the whole gamut of anything from full custom, fully custom-made developed products to looking at how the dropshipping supply chain works as well.
Nice. Yeah, for me, it's the same. I've been living in China for 10 years, and 8 of these years I've been actively sourcing products, visited probably hundreds of factories and then thousands of products. And it was very, some of the clients were offline retailers, some of them were online sellers, and in some cases we had to pitch a product. And sometimes they gave us the specifics and we had to find that. And I think it's good to kick off when it comes to developing a custom products. For us, I had a really cool example. One is in the niche of cleaning products, and they had a dishwasher brush. So he asked us, can you source a dishwasher brush? And he gave us a price range of roughly what it would be. We started sourcing. And then all these factories, they started asking, what type of handle do you want? Wood, silicone, plastic? Okay, what kind of shape should it be at? Should it be a knob where you can stick it on your kitchen table? What should be the shape of the actual brush? Should it be a round one? Should it be square? How long should it be? How many hairs should be on that? I was like, oh, there's a lot of details to a dishwasher brush. And if you replicate it into the hundreds or thousands of products that I've been sourcing, you get very deep into the actual product itself, but also the complexity of it to be able to see what works and what doesn't work. And it doesn't always have to come down to the actual product, but definitely the product experience or maybe even the packaging. But let's just talk about what is the right approach to be able to develop a custom product.
So first, on a general level, don't try to develop the product that you think is going to work. Develop the product that you know, or you have a great idea that there's going to be a customer base, there's going to be a market out there that they actually need. And very important, that they're actually willing to pay for at the price that makes sense for you, specifically for the features or the benefits that come from that product. A little bit more nuanced than that, right? But this is why when you think about a custom developed product, and to your point, Simon, there's so many components to it. It's not just about, hey, make me this spoon or whatever it might be, but there's tons of little decisions you have to make. But before that, you got to make sure that it is a product that can actually sell, hopefully something that's a little bit different or hopefully very different. So probably don't try to sell another spoon, right? Unless there's something unique about it, and really focus on what the customer actually might need, and specifically individual aspects of it that they might find the most attractive and willing to pay for. The reason why you want to be very thoughtful about this, even before you do any of the work in actually developing a product, is because Developing a real custom product is hard. It is risky. It is costly, and it takes a while. So Simon, you know more about this than most people out there. Maybe talk a little bit more like about, okay, what makes it so hard? What makes it so costly?
Yeah, there are several steps that you have to go through, but it's basically, it starts with making it explicit what it is you want. Like, what function do you want the product to have? Do you have any examples of what it should look like? What are your requirements? And for me, it was also always taking the client to the factory. We go together to factories to actually see what is in their sample room. Every factory has a sample room with all products that are on display for what they produced, or going to the Canton Fair, which we also recommend clients to do to get inspired. You can search on AliExpress or Alibaba, but it's not the real experience. It's not holding the product and saying, this doesn't really feel right. So for me, step one, knowing what you want is first thing. And then if you're not sure, ask the right questions and get that from the people itself, from the consumer or from the factory. Have a dialogue about the requirements itself, what's even possible. And then you start to prototype. So you start to get samples from different factories. You make a comparison. I remember one of our clients is actually, this is the product we want to do. Let's get 10 samples. Let's see which of these samples are good, which part of the sample is good. Can we make this into one unique product? So getting actually that step in actually getting the samples in. And there are factories that they can also create a sample for you without buying a mold, which is a manual process. And normally there's a sample fee because it's a manual work and a lot of time goes into it. But it saves you the initial investment of going big scale and having a mold in there where it might be for your customized product. So normally they have a flow, they have a sample room where also someone is actually creating the samples that you would like to have. And then it can be sent out and then you will give your feedback. Always recommend, make sure you touch the physical product. Make sure you receive the sample, either you with a visit in the factory or attending a fair or receiving it in your house. Then when the production comes, when you finish the production, well, you place the order, so the samples is good, confirmed sample, here's the order, you're going to do the production, and then there's going to be a finished product. If you have the luxury, it's good that someone is doing during production inspection or after the production is inspected. So the quality control is very important. In my experience, 2 times I didn't do it, and both times it went horribly wrong. The product had a print on a bottle and you could scratch it off. We could have seen it if we would have done quality control, but it was 5,000 pieces, too far away. It was a 4-hour bus ride or 6-hour bus ride and back. So we didn't do it from cost. And we lost the client. Another one was kitchen tiles. They were not natural. They were actually produced in 5 different factories. The factories were messy. The finished product, it was not natural stone. It was printed on it. So it arrived in the client, and then all the stones were white. So basically the print has fell off because of the heat of the inside the container. These were 2 cases where we didn't do the quality control, and it was a significant loss. For both the clients, they were lost. This was back in the days when I was actually running a trading company. Even though the quantity might be small, there are quality control companies that you can outsource the service to, or when it arrives in your warehouse, make sure you do a sample size check. You don't have to do everything, but even then, when you do this quality control, be very specific what needs to be checked. Your warehouse partner or your factory doesn't know exactly what matters to you. Be very specific on what it is that needs to be checked. And that's something that's very important. Where you also outsource it, you also have to list all the things. This is what it should be. And then you have to compare costs, obviously, how long it takes, the timeline. So from an operational perspective, the production is up till QC and then there's a shipment. But overall, when you start this whole process, you have to be aware, okay, how much time does it cost for me? How long does it take? And we see actually producing a product is very different for traditional retail or for an online store. Because traditional retail, the ones that we work with, normally we're around 9 to 10 months ahead of the actual sales date. So let's say we are in, April, then we have to get the product basically start in June, July, August, roughly. Then we start sourcing, finding factories, making comparisons, sending samples, up until placing the order and do the QC. So it's quite long, 8 to 10 months. When it comes to online sellers, if you do a custom product, because you have to wait to receive adjusted product, because there's a lot of communication involved, it easily takes 3 to 6 months to get that finished product. But Dayu, you've developed your own product as well, customized from A to Z. Does that also resonate with you, these kind of timelines that you've been facing?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think it took us, well, it depends on where you put the starting date, but 9 months or so sounds about right. And there's also the costs as well. We had initial investment of roughly $150,000 just to get it started, based on a 5,000 MOQ. But also it's because we had a firmware and server element as well. Like we had to pay tens of thousands for tooling. We had to pay $35,000 for the firmware development costs as well. So it all adds up. Obviously, it was more of an electronic product. But the point is, a lot of the process takes time. And I flew back and forth between the US and Shenzhen, I think like 4 or 5 times through the entire process. I spent Thanksgiving on the factory floor in Shenzhen to get this product out. So it's hard and it's costly and it takes a long time, especially if you're more using the traditional freight model, for example. The point is, it's not easy. It's a commitment of both time and likely a lot of money as well. So it is really important to get that first step right. Is this product even worth developing? Is it even worth exploring? Is it even worth taking that first, second, third step? And this is where, as much as you can, validate the actual market demand out there. A lot of our audience are going to be from e-com or maybe drop shippers. And actually, you're going to have a pretty big edge over just someone with an idea. I started out with someone who had an idea and I had to deal with it a different way. However, I think that if you're in e-commerce already, you're going to have a huge leg up in that first step of actually understanding what your market needs and therefore what product might actually make sense for you to even to consider. And maybe Simon, you can talk about that a little bit more, what you see in the industry.
Yeah, we see, obviously, there's a lot of testing, but you don't always have to sell every product to find, okay, I want to customize this product because it's selling well. It's also the part of the research and finding out, okay, this is a niche I would like to be active in. Let's just collect some feedback. What are the reviews? What are the comments that people give? Is there some learnings I can take away? If I have the product myself, what could I improve? Really, the depth of actually getting prepared and getting the feedback from the market, but also allowing the factory sometimes to be participating in this part. And that's something that a lot of people forget, is they set a very clear requirement. This is what I want it to be. The factory delivers while they know it's not the best way to produce it. And that's something that is something that we have to consider, that your opinion is your opinion, and it might, we're not the ones actually producing it ourselves on the factory floor. To have that understanding of leveraging the different kind of knowledge that's out there, instead of I want to make the best possible product, you need to have an open mind that you might be wrong, that nobody wants that product, or maybe too early, or maybe you haven't thought it through because it's not realistic. And therefore you're stuck into a segment where you cannot scale. And you would like to have a scalable business. It starts with the product. And obviously that as the product starts scaling, your business starts to evolve into a brand or even more. But it's very important that you collect that feedback. Ask your friends, family, preferably not your friends and family, but ask strangers what they actually think about the product. Would it help them? Is there a benefit to them? What is the feedback? You see a lot of dropshippers actually putting products online just to get feedback if this is a product, and then they cancel all the orders and then they continue. I'm not suggesting to do that, but I'm just showing you of how do you get feedback without making that initial investment. Well, because what Dayu mentioned, it's a significant investment in time, money, and resources.
Yeah, it's something that when I first started Pillar Learning, that was before I had e-commerce experience. I think that if I had deep e-commerce experience in a specific area, I would have had a lot more data already to know that actually not even just for this kind of product, but having awareness of like what actually is missing in the market simply because I'm in that specific market. Now, what I do with Pillar Learning is what I still believe is the right way to do it, but it was a lot harder because we had to get initial prototyping stage. So I don't mean physical prototyping, but even just visual prototypes. And we had to book a lot of user studies, talking to families, talking to potential customers, getting a lot of reactions. And we actually spent some money actually building up a mailing list just based on a visual mock-up and a simple landing page to actually test that demand. So this is what I'm saying. Like if you already have like an e-commerce store, a dropshipping store, even if you're not selling custom products, you actually have a pretty big leg up understanding what your own customers might actually like or dislike and gaps in the market as well. And this is actually what some of our biggest clients do is they turn this into a actual model itself. They leverage their understanding of their own customer base. They might have started selling a more generic product. However, then they utilize that customer feedback and actually develop something very efficiently that actually meets that specific criteria. So they feel confident that the product is actually something that the customer needs and the specific feature set actually matches their expectation that they'll pay for as well. So let's dig deeper on the specifics of a feature set. Building off of what Simon said earlier, there is a whole list of decisions that you need to make. Every single component, and depending on the product itself, you could have 10, 20, even more components or materials that you need to make decisions on. And there's a lot of variance in the cost, complexity, sourcing time of each of those components. So this is where you have the most expertise, Simon. Just tell us a little bit about how large the variance in costs could be in some individual components that maybe, if you're not in sourcing, you don't fully realize.
Yeah, this is also always, and that's what I mentioned, getting a target price range is crucial because it really determines on where we are going to search in the first place. And that's the advantage and the disadvantage of China. Everything is available at a certain price. Obviously, when you go to a more higher quality, not always you get a better product. Everyone, if you focused on price, you also get what you pay for. And I think that's something sometimes people don't realize is if I did that before, is that possible for a discount? Can I get a lower price? At what quantities can I get a certain discount? These negotiations with the factory is also for them in the back of their mind. It's like, okay, I can give you a discount. And they know that means I have to downgrade the raw material to something else so that I can still make my margin. It's not being said, but it's being done. You don't realize it per se because you're still talking about a non-existing product. And then they start the production and you ask for a sample and like, feels really cheap. And the visuals are nice, the photos are nice, but the product is not. And that easily happens. With plastics, there are different grade levels. With stainless steel, you have different grade levels. With fabrics, you have different material levels. When it comes to gold, you have different levels of gold. They have all these kind of details on what is the certain quality that you want your brand to have? What is the consumer also willing to give for that brand experience, for that product itself? And I think that's something that a factory is going to give you what you ask them to do. And they are going to make sure they're not going to lose money, that they at least there is a margin. Otherwise, they're not going to say yes. Once a factory says yes, you accepted a price that's too high. Technically, that's how negotiation works. Sometimes you have to walk away, you have to ignore them. But yeah, when you are showing you're on top of it. A client came to me back then saying, I would like to develop, let's say back to this brush. Okay, how many pieces? What's the price range? Any specifics? Nope. I said, then you're giving me carte blanche. Giving me carte blanche to pitch anything that I would like to give, or for me saying, this is going to take way too much of my time because you don't know your details. And the factory is much more cooperative if you are very specific about these details. I think it's very important that there is a price range in everything. The same applies for batteries. You can get them very cheap. they're not going to last very long. You can get them very expensive and they might last forever, or 10 years, or how long is necessary. The safety of the products, the certificates that come with the products, the requirements are now getting stricter and stricter on having the right certificates. FDA, CE, trademarks, patent, all these kind of details, they come with actually a higher value product because they are guaranteeing a certain level of quality.
Yeah, so one important point that you just made there, I think, is the factory is going to just produce what you tell them to do at a certain price point. And if you're not specific about some of these options, or you don't care, or you don't know to care, then you may not have the outcome that you're actually looking for. And the price point, and therefore your target cost, is actually very important here. And this is where you have to also pair it with your customer expectations as well. You have to understand your market. You have to understand that the range of pricing that they're going to pay for. But not only that, you have to dig into specifics, ideally as well, is for each feature or component, you need to be very proactive about understanding for each area, what do your customers care about or not care about? How do they prioritize things? How much are they willing to pay more for something? So I'll give an example of parallel learning, our Codi product. So it is meant to be a relatively higher end IoT enabled smart toy product. But no matter how high end it was, we didn't think that parents would pay $300 for something like this. We thought like, okay, maximum maybe like $100 or so. And that's what we felt was a reasonable, again, maximum, right? And we wanted to kind of keep the price under that with discounts as much as possible. So that kind of implied that we needed to target a end-to-end COGS of maybe $30, $40, right? Ideally less than that, which if you take away the supply chain, the shipping costs or something like that, we were targeting something like $18 to $20 for the actual product COGS and selling it maybe for $90 to $100. And because of that, we were actually forced to make a lot of trade-off decisions on some of the components. So for example, when you pick your plastic materials, there are, like Simon said, a whole range of grades of different plastics. For our product, because it is targeted towards younger children, and therefore there is a very high risk of dropping, and we want it to be certified drop proof from a certain height as well, we opted for the highest quality and therefore most expensive ABS plastic there is. Another actually kind of opposite example is, so Codi is a storytelling toy or robot, and it has a speaker. Speakers also has a huge range in quality and volume and sound quality levels. But actually, we realized that through our user testing from some prototypes, kids actually like to actually put Codi up on their ears, which means that having a high quality loudspeaker, not only was it not necessary, it could actually be even damaging to the child's ears. So we actually opted for one of the cheaper versions of a decent quality, consistent speaker. However, it wasn't very loud. It certainly wasn't going to play classic music like perfectly. However, it was exactly perfect for our use case, and it cut the cost down in a way where it did not do anything to the overall perceived quality of the product, but it was able to make the product cheaper and therefore more affordable for our customers. As part of your market research to figure out if this product is viable in the first place, dig deep. Dig deep in two different ways. One is talk to your factory, not only tell them, hey, make this product at this price point. Tell them to give you what's called a BOM, a bill of materials, a listing of all the specific components, batteries, materials, etc., right? Have them give you a range for different options that you can actually have, different costs, different lead times, and then synthesize that into, okay, what does this actually mean for the customer experience? How do you prioritize these things? What are areas that you should make as high quality as possible? What are areas that really the customer doesn't actually care about? So you can actually make it much cheaper. However, it is still within your customer's expectations, but it's more affordable for them and therefore more likely to sell. So going to those kind of specifics is very, very important for custom development, or else you very much might come out with a product that your factory made it to your specs, right? But it's too expensive, or there's quality issues in things that your customer actually care about, but you never really realized it because you never actually considered the customer viewpoint there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Testing it also towards your audience. I still remember we used to work with a Dutch brand. There's a plush toy. It's called Miffy, and it's maybe you see it in airports. It's a very cute bunny. Really cool designs. We did the quality control for the factories. They had the relationship with the factory. We went there for the quality control. They were just exporting it out of China, but it was produced in China. And then we saw there's a need in China to sell this product as well. And then it's like, okay, it's a global brand. Let's start this marketing strategy and let's figure out how we can launch it into the Chinese market. We got a marketing agency involved, and they had 5 test audience, and we just put some products on the table and then say, okay, here's a product. What is your feedback? So Chinese consumers, different age groups, different profiles, and let them give feedback, like five batches of groups. None of them knew it was a Dutch brand. They all thought it was a Japanese brand. And they never thought about giving it away because 18 to 35-year-old wanted to buy it for themselves. And that already changed the whole marketing scope, because most people would buy it on the airport for their kids so they come home with something. And it's in Western world, it was more for kids. While there they suddenly have another target audience, which also has more to spend. It's less of a giveaway. It's actually something valuable for yourself. And it's a very different audience that is active on different media and different engagement. That was very interesting, because then you're not communicating messaging to parents, you're messaging to adults, and you're messaging maybe from an angle with a more Japanese look and feel instead of the Dutch, because they resonate with that. We wouldn't have known this if we would have not put the product on the table. If you scale globally and you're selling offline, having that interaction with potential consumers or getting feedback from individuals has really helped to be able to identify, how am I going to position my product itself? How am I going to do the packaging? Should it be kids proof in the first place? If no kid is buying it, maybe I can do it more stylish or differently.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, the other thing about pricing as well is this does depend also on how much margin you actually have on the product. And that actually depends on the vertical in itself. So, for example, I'm actually partnering with a brand in skincare right now. In skincare beauty products, there's some of the highest gross margin type products out there. Most skincare out there, it costs a couple dollars, no matter what it is. Like, there's nothing too fancy about it, right? And they sell it for $30, $40, $50. So huge gross margins. But most skincare brands aren't that level of success, because what a lot of female consumers care about when they care about skincare is more about, okay, they want to believe in the benefits. It's more about that branding. They want to feel like this is something that actually is safe on their skin, good on their skin. And especially if you're going for more of a premium price point, it has to feel premium to them, right? So this is why, like, especially if you're going for that kind of price point, skincare beauty brands, they invest a lot on their packaging. Their packaging materials, packaging design. And by the way, anyone who has experience deciding on packaging, like, it's like 10 cents difference. So it's not even a huge difference, right? Whereas, like, on the other extreme, if you're selling a very commoditized product, if you're selling spoons, don't sell spoons, right? The margins are so thin that, like, you actually have to literally make decisions. Okay, like, can I just use the cheapest plastic possible, right? Like, can I just cut corners everywhere? Because you can't sell a spoon for, I don't know, more than, actually, I have no idea how much a single spoon costs. Like, it's all over the place. But the point is that when you have lower margins, and these decisions become very specific and very different. So I wanted to use these two extremes because it's not always about, like, trying to cut costs as much as possible. There is some situations where you are charging a premium price point, and you actually, within reason, want to offer a lot of the premium components. Something like Apple products is a good example of this. Apple is not, they don't have every single feature, obviously. However, all the components are very high quality, and therefore they can justify a much higher premium price point for their kind of products.
Yeah, I remember we were sourcing for one brand, well, 2 brands actually, one company running 2 brands, exact same product, different packaging. And one was sold for a higher price than the other one. Because what they wanted is they wanted to have both to be in the store, and there was then one other brand next to it, and they wanted to make sure that they had a chance of 2 out of 3 instead of 1 out of 2. because 2 out of 3 is a higher percentage than 1 out of 2. And that's as a consumer, we actually sometimes don't realize. And it's very interesting if you're in the back end of the actual operation, that some of the products you buy as a consumer, they have a different brand, but they're identical product. It's just the sticker that somebody have put on it, and it's the marketing value that they have been pushing out there. So really understanding how much different are you actually from the high-end brands in quality, in components of what's inside. Where do you range? And how can I leverage that with a price point to be able to have healthier margins, but also most likely position you higher. If you are much better product versus the competition that is selling at a higher price point, you have your competitive edge. But you need to know what's inside the product and what's the benefit, especially when it comes to skincare, those kind of things. What is a reusable product, so people tend to buy again and again and again. If they finish the use, they will buy it again and again, which is a good thing if they have a good experience. But you need to know how you can actually, what's inside. And that does require you to actually get educated on what are the options. And I think already what Dayu mentioned, to be able to ask for advice from the factory, from the supplier, saying these are your options, this is what it costs, this is the benefits, these are the downsides. I think that's very, very relevant that we should consider when we are thinking about this topic, about developing a custom product. Thank you so much for listening. Let me just wrap it up and let me give you something extra. We actually have a link in the show notes, in the description, so wherever you're looking, about giving you how you can actually run your sourcing more efficiently. Just some tips on a checklist of what you need to tick off if you're developing a customized product. Make use of it. You've listened to the end of the podcast, so I want to leave it right here so the ones that are truly listening can actually capture this value. If you're developing a custom product, make sure step 1, develop the right product, test it, and get feedback whether there's an interest or need for the product. Check the options from the consumer perspective, from the factory perspective, and do spend time and resources on R&D. Make sure your product keeps evolving, because in the end, your competition is going to catch up if you don't have a unique product and it keeps improving. I mean, the iPhone is, how many numbers are we now at? They keep evolving their product. Make sure you do that. This will only help you to scale, not only your product, but in the end, also your brand. Thank you for listening. See you on the next episode.